The Qur'an, Surah 16, verse 103. And we certainly know what they say. It is only a human being who teaches the Prophet. The tongue of the one they refer to is foreign, and this Qur'an is in clear Arabic language. Hello, I'm Dan Gibson, and this is a video in the short series of videos that will examine Islamic history in the light of the Qur'an. In some cases, we will look at the theories presented by some revisionist scholars in the light of the discovery of the Petra Qibla. In other videos, like this one, we will examine some passages in the Qur'an and seek to understand them if they were written with a Petra context in mind rather than Mecca in Saudi Arabia. If you're new to the whole concept of Petra being the holy city of Islam, also known as Mecca in Arabia Parent, then I suggest that you find the film The Sacred City and watch that. This series, called the Petra Context, will be more technical and address specific issues rather than introduce the wider picture. So in this video, we want to examine the passage that comes from Surah Al-Nahl, and verse 103. That's chapter 16, verse 103 of the Qur'an. God is speaking, and he says, "We certainly know that they say, it is only a human being who teaches the Prophet. The tongue of the one they refer to is foreign, and this Qur'an is in clear Arabic language." From this verse, we learn that people are claiming that someone is teaching Muhammad, and that he's just saying what another individual is teaching to him. This verse addresses this rumor and argues that the one who they claim is teaching Muhammad is a foreigner who doesn't speak very good Arabic. But when Muhammad reveals some of the Quran, it is in clear Arabic. In the Mecca context, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Who is this foreigner who doesn't speak good Arabic and who says and is supposed to be teaching Muhammad? Besides this, many scholars have argued over the idea of the Arabic of the Quran being clear, especially since it contains many Aramaic loanwords. How can it be said to be clear? So what does this verse mean if it's taken in a Petra context? On the shelf behind me, I have the 5-volume series written on the Petra scrolls, with photos of every page of those scrolls, and then translations and comments made by experts around the world. Every page of the Petra scrolls is written in Greek characters, and only those who understand the Greek alphabet can read it. The scrolls are all formal, legal documents, and to be legal documents, they had to be written in Greek because Petra was in the Greek areas, the very southernmost city of the Greek Empire. What is important to recognize is that the Petra scrolls were written during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad. Based on this, some have complained to me that Greek, not Arabic, was the language of the city of Petra. However, throughout the Petra scrolls, the names of places and the descriptions of things use Arabic words, not Greek words. It becomes obvious that the people used Arabic as their spoken language and did not even know the Greek names for many things. For instance, the Greeks have words for grapes, but the people of Petra called the grapes by the Arabic word habla. There are many examples of this. For instance, a bir is a well or a cistern, such as used in Bir Araba. Field markers are called by the Arabic word aram, and the name Naam El is grace of El, or the grace of God. An ain is a spring of water. A beit is a house. The Greek language has words for all of these, but Arabic terms are used rather than Greek terms. Thus, Beit al-Akbar is the large house. Daraja are steps or terraces. The people of Petra used Hamra for red. The word Sharqiya is used for eastern rather than the Greek word. There are lots of Arabic words that show up. Nahar is a gully. Sarj is a hill or a ridge or a saddle or an inverted cooking pot. Mal is property or the things that you own. Marabas is a threshing floor. Nasbah is a farm, and so on. But there's more than this. The scholars that are studying these scrolls notice that the Petra scrolls, in those scrolls, the people of Petra used El for a definite article. For instance, they would say El Beit for a house. The rest of the Arab world used En for this constructive state. At that time, the use of El was unique in the Arabian Peninsula and mirrors the Arabic language used in the Qur'an, and that language is found in Petra. Now, some scholars are suggesting that this demonstrates that the Quranic Arabic originated in the Petra region. So, has any Arabic writing been found in Petra? Excavations in the Islamic quarter to the north of Petra are just beginning, so it's too early to say nothing has been found yet. So no one even knew there was any Islamic quarter up until a couple of years ago. And at that time, there wasn't much interest in excavating there because most archaeologists were focused on the great monumental buildings built by the earlier Nabateans or Byzantines. Remember, Muhammad did not build anything in Mecca or Petra during his lifetime. After a couple of years of trying to preach to the people, trying to preach Islam, they were rejecting him, so he went off to Medina. That's where the first buildings were built. I would not expect to find anything about Muhammad from his earlier period, as he was a single preacher who was rejected by the city. Years later, the prophet returned with an army. And that army did a lot of destruction of the pagan sites, so much so that they've been erased from history. The prophet died a few years later, and the first caliphs managed the growing Islamic empire from Medina, not from the holy city. And then the administration was moved up to Damascus. Now, if we identify the second fitna, or the second civil war, as being in Petra, then the Kaaba was destroyed and the black stone was removed from Petra. So today, those who are looking for some evidence of Islam in Petra need to ask themselves the question, what sort of evidence should I expect? The city was hostile to Muslims until the death of Muhammad in 11 after the Hijrah. After that was the first fitna, and then after that the second fitna. So the holy city existed mostly as a pilgrimage city where people went once a year, and maybe only once in their lifetime. 29 years later, Muawiyah moved the capital from Medina to Damascus. And for years after that was the second civil war, the second fitna. By 70 after the Hijrah, the war was declining and the city was in ruins. The Kaaba had been destroyed. The Black Rock had been taken away onto Saudi. And so a new place in Saudi was now being called Mecca. And so in those brief years, during all of the fighting and the conflict, we can't expect to find anything significantly Islamic in the city. One significant thing we have is that the language of the city was a mixture of Arabic and Greek. But when Muhammad moved to Medina, there was little or no Greek influence. Even when he was back in the holy city, when he revealed Surah from the Qur'an, he would speak it out in Arabic. This was the language of the people, not the confusing mix of Greek and Arabic used in Petra. Listen to what the Qur'an says. We certainly know that they say, it is only a human being who teaches the prophet. The tongue of the one they refer to is foreign. And this Qur'an is a clear Arabic language. Scholars of Islam have often wondered why the Qur'an was written in such difficult Arabic, and they have argued that this verse doesn't make much sense. But when the revealing of the Qur'an is placed in the Petra context, we can understand the real meaning behind the verse. Finally, the Arabs have a scripture in their own language. It is not written in the confusing mix of Greek and Arabic that was used in Petra. So anyone helping Muhammad would have spoken that confusing Greek-Arabic mixture. Once we place the origin of the Quran in Petra, it makes sense that the people of Petra would say that Muhammad was only speaking things he'd learned from someone else, possibly a Christian in the city, maybe even Waraka ibn Nawfal, his relative, who knew the scriptures and wrote them out for the people, those Hebrew scriptures. All of this makes sense in the setting of Petra. And this verse in the Quran seems to address how the pure Arabic of the Arabs was mixed with the Greek that the Romans spoke. This mixture of language would have been confusing to many Arabs who did not read or speak Greek. And so along comes Muhammad, speaking to them in the pure Arabic language, and telling them that there is a new scripture that is in the pure Arabic language. Surah Zukhruf begins, that's Surah 43, by the clear book. Thus we have made it an Arabic Qur'an that haply you may understand. And truly it is with us in the mother of book, sublime indeed wise. This is verse 1 to 3. These verses make sense in the Petra context. When compared to the Arabic of the Petra region that was mixed with Greek, the Quran comes out as a pure language and not that mixture of Greek and Arabic that was spoken in Petra. I'm Dan Gibson, and this has been another video in the series Petra Context.